Welcome back. So I got a lot more to get through, so we're just gonna jump back in. Let's throw some of this on. We in the Wild West now. Do do do. Okay. So I took the center point of this, like here, which I have since realized is basically this island here. And so I measured from this island up to like the center of this. So like here, let's say like, I think I had it at 3321, like at that length, around there. So that's what this is, 3323. And I said, maybe it's worth switching over. I've been looking at this Hess rise, this circle here. Like, it's very anomalous to me that there is a oceanic plateau that it follows an arc like this, but then it has this like notch in it. Mind you, I'm of the interpretation that the mid-Pacific Mountains formed underneath North America. So over here is something that formed under North America. And I was thinking maybe some of this formed under North America, and I ended up kind of looking around like, well, what if that notch, so if we measure this notch, let's say like this is maybe not truly round, like the roundedness to it is more like here. So maybe like here to here, or something in this range. So that's kind of lowballing it, like 80 miles, let's say. And I said, well, how big is this circle, like radius-wise? So it's an 86 there, thereabouts. Like a circle here. You can't really see the side, but we can kind of extend this side over here, and about to there, and with that down there, and over around there. So it's about the same size, so I was thinking maybe it formed there. There. So we've got a measurement from this thing up to Hess rise, but specifically to that node on Hess rise, which is like right there. A measurement from there. Mind you, this used to be over here. So I said, how does that compare to this distance from, and not this to here, but from Ecuador to the Colorado Plateau Center? And it's pretty much the same. Pretty much the same distance. Not just like kind of the same, but very much the same. And I was like, good sign, same distance from secondary mantle puncture hole to center circle of the Colorado Plateau as there is from the Angel's Halo, which is kind of what I was calling this structure over here, like the angel and its halo, even though maybe head, it's, or heart maybe, but this structure, which I called its halo, same distance, basically, to this semicircle indentation in Hess rise, which makes me more confident. It makes me more confident there are more relationships between the Western Pacific and North America than just the Mid-Pacific Mountains. which mid-Pacific Mountains formed here. There they are, forming against the resistance of this underlayer below North America. And I was thinking possibly some other systems that have since moved in the Baja BC process that were like here, forming a backstop to behind this arc. In the same way as there's a backstop here, there was a backstop here, is kind of what I'm thinking. It's just missing. But so this is where Colorado Plateau is, and Hesper's node is somewhere around there. So it's pretty close, even when put over this. So notice down here is pretty close to the Angel's Halo, and then the Trident goes that way pretty much to Baja, California, where it then takes material up to British Columbia. But this is on the current radius Earth, so it's still a little like hard to actually do. But I think basically the Western Pacific opened up as North America and South America separated. The Western Pacific was opening up, participating in the process of separating them. And then it moved out at 66 million, which is when the majority of the Pacific formed. And just the Earth's oceanic crust formed after 66 million. The majority, the mean, is around 66 million, a little less for the overall, and the Pacific is 66 million. But I kept thinking about it, so there's those things. Then that was 22 hours ago. 5 hours ago, I was thinking perhaps the Hesper's initially formed. So I was thinking, what if it formed like here, like its arc kind of fits here? What if its arc was here? Like this arc. So mind you, over here is Shasta Rise. So what if this arc formed here, and then down, and then Shasta Rise formed more here as that backstop? Like it goes up and then back down, and it formed as a backstop, or maybe a little lower to down there, like in this whole region. At least some of it. Underneath, though. But where Hesper's initially perhaps formed abutting this, so I kind of did the same thing. I said, what if it was like that? It was actually like this. Like here's Hesper's, and then I basically centered it on this structure, which is around Bighorn. I found it's actually a little to the, it's like to here. It's more like this, or something of this nature, with like the side seemingly over here, the only portion that's really applying an upward pressure on the crust, where over here it just supports the basin area in here. So I put it there, like this, and I'm like, it kind of follows this arc here, so that to me gives a little credence that maybe, like right there, an arc here, maybe there was the Hess Rise there, then, like if I go from here to over here, 677 miles. And if I go from, say, here to like here, let's see, from down here at this corner to like 677 is like there, so that's a little far, but maybe that was a little short down there. So let's say maybe a little lower, like down to this corner. I mean, it's certainly in the range where it could have been generally there, abutting initially there, so forming its actual, forming this indentation in it at Bighorn Mountain. So like current coming across from the mantle puncture hole in that instance would have to effectively come across this way, or like this way even. So I'm not sure if that would really make any sense. If there was a time when Australia was between them, then maybe it was a little more at that angle initially, and then it switched off of that angle by basically rotating the Hess rise portion more down, where it then got caught again over here, got caught like in this region underneath, but then that like physically participated in nucleating the Colorado Plateau, maybe like off of the structure, moving down here where the Colorado Plateau Center is, like over here. So it like shifted from up here, got off of the rung, moved up, got shoved away enough that it like moved off the rung and moved downward, but then got caught down here against the pressure, where it formed another eddy of the Colorado Plateau. Like nucleated though, gave something for this current coming in to spiral around, which then allowed it to like grow to a maximum radius, which maybe helped shove Hess rise some more from the pressure up here as like steps in the process of the continent spreading until it straightened out so that the mantle puncture hole goes across this way, and instead of going like up at a 90-degree angle kind of thing to Bighorn, it comes across to Bighorn generally, like across this width to Bighorn. So it's still connected to Bighorn, it just flows differently. So I measured Bighorn to the Galapagos hotspot, and I saw it also is a very similar distance, 3227. If we go back here, or that's 33. 33. Oh. Although I think I was trying to limit the distance. Let's try it more, because I didn't actually go to the center of this. I went to here. Let's try it more like there, just to see. Maybe all the way to like the center of Galapagos. I mean, it certainly is in that range. I gave it a couple more miles. I don't want to like force it to the same amount, but it's certainly in that range. Like that's the same amount. So the Galapagos hotspot is basically related to the spreading, the sliding out from under South America of this angel halo that was in the little crevice here, and then moved out over here, like along this path. or at least the focal point of the current flows, this might have actually moved a lot more like down and then over this way, like along generally that path. Which could have happened if it was applying pressure up here and down here, but like more pressure up here so that it moved downward out of this nook over and down, while the hotspot moved over here. The like balance point between the currents moved over there, and it created a new hotspot effectively. But wasn't enough to like fully continue the process. The process was ending, but it's still connected back to the original location. I don't know why I would go to the original location in terms of distance, because really it should be presumably the distance from Bighorn to that one, to the secondary mantle puncture hole, but it may have something to do with that the continents have spread that then makes them reach a new balance point that's like opposite with how it was, something of that nature, where the distances are now the same to the like opposing systems opposite. Like this system is the same as this one's opposite, and vice versa. Before they, I don't know. It just seems too similar to be completely moot and not actually have any merit. Like there's something to this. I don't know if this is true. I don't know if the other one in the Colorado Plateau is true. Like this kind of makes sense to me. That something of this nature might be happening underneath there, especially with Hawaii basically running into the end of the Sierra Nevadas. And then the presence of the Sierra Nevadas as like almost like a prevention of current flowing this way, where it's caused to go around it and then back down. Also going around this current, going up this way, that like generally points that way. Even though it bends, it still points up this way, through this thing, up into basically this nook. I think that's right there. I don't think they're in line. I doubt the Mid-Pacific Mountains is specifically in line with this. Maybe it's Arc is. No, I was thinking maybe there. That's not. Although this would have been adjacent to Shotsky Rise, like over here, and then spread apart. And this would have been forming like 90 degrees off of it almost. I mean, they're connected like that way. This connects through to Shatsky Rise. So if this like opened up space between them, then it would kind of make sense. I don't know if the timing, because this is pretty old, it would have had to move Shatsky Rise relatively early in the process, which is possible. Okay, let's move on from this one. Then there's this, the hotspot highway, where a bunch of hotspots are theorized to have crossed over one another in their tracks. A lot of stuff going on around Samoa. And you know what's around Samoa? the Angel's halo is like right there. It's not exactly there, but it's really close. Which makes me think there's a relationship. I haven't really looked into these any further to it made me realize though I need to start looking at hotspots now. Like I went through large igneous provinces pretty well. I know what hotspots are. They're not mantle plumes. They're current focal points that are then producing like focuses of energy that are higher than elsewhere, that then leads to an imbalance in the actual amount of heat there and the amount of just like magma and so on, which leads to all of the observations connected to hotspots. But this current is an undercurrent below the crust coming from the mantle puncture hole and the secondary mantle puncture hole interacting with one another in different ways that then balance out by the primary mantle puncture hole flowing in all directions and then colliding, and then the secondary mantle puncture hole interacting with those currents that are flowing, that then just creates like a bunch of nodes where the currents are most focused, which then leads to like Ontong Java Plateau, Ontong Java Nui, which then leads to its breakup because the currents keep going into that location, which then leads to the spiral, the figure 8 structure forming and a current jet stream going to cut it across, and the spreading of the ocean floor there into forming the ocean floor effectively. Then I said boom, because this says the volcanics of the highway concept are related to the breakup of the Ontong Java Hikurangi Manihiki large igneous province. And then large low shear velocity province of the Pacific, which maybe I should, maybe is like a larger one relative, just like a more general, where they're all focusing, but they're not like exactly focusing, but their cumulative effect is like a more large scale focal point that is like a large low shear velocity province. I don't know. Just a thought that like more specifically something like that is happening, where their overall effect has a balance point as well. That is that. Because it's singular, where there are many. At least in the Pacific, and then there's an African one, and then maybe some others, and I wonder if those would also have similar inferences that could be drawn. We also find evidence for 3 seamounts and 1 atoll along the Samoan hotspot track that are not geochemically related to Samoa. 3 non-Samoan hotspots currently active in the Cook Austral Islands provided volcanism in the Samoan region approximately 10 to 40 million years ago. The 4 interloping volcanoes exhibit geochemical affinities with the 3 hotspots. So there's other hotspots. So it's almost like these focal points can also kind of divide into multiple focal points, like a decay product. Like it's literally like a particle seen from a different angle where it decays, but it's really just like a summation of focused energies, flows that are running in opposition to one another that then are perfectly balanced. They're not like this. They're either like this, where their forces are equal, so like some balance point where their forces are equal, exactly opposite. Or like a third one is involved, and then some balance point between them. And then there's also the potential of like up and down kind of forces involved, and not just in a plane, that are ultimately leading to these hotspots. But then when the Earth expands, the angle that they approach one another changes, so it can like decay into multiple focal points between the current paths. So there's just some non-Samoan lavas in the purple. I just kind of included this, I don't know. And then some hotspot tracks from the paper. Okay. Then, the Ontong Java Plateau may have formed by some kind of plume, but if so, it must have been very different from what we envision a mantle plume to be. So here's 8 observations from this mantleplumes.org. The Ontong Java Plateau puzzle that I took this clip of. It's probably twice as long as this. The bulk of the plateau these are eight key observations that need to be explained by a mechanism for the formation of the Ontong Java Plateau and ocean floor or ocean plateaus in general. The bulk of the plateau formed at 120 million, which relates to Baja BC, and just like the breakup of the Ontong Java relates to Baja BC. The plateau was formed on relatively young seafloor, so it wasn't really that old, which I was just thinking, like, why would it break it apart? Maybe it's because it's more in the ocean floor region, which is more easily expandable because there's not continents holding it together above. So it expands there, but there's this plateau. But this like allows it to expand, but the so that the Ontong Java Nui plateaus break into 3. Basically, so that actually supports what I was just saying. This is just kind of okay. I mean, it certainly supports what I'm saying, like approaching 66 million. These wedges are forming as the pressure under the crust builds, so it starts to form more and more of these oceanic plateaus as wedges to separate the continents between them. Average crustal thickness is greater than 30 kilometers. Just like I was saying, though, these undercurrents that compile material in a high enough quantity where it actually influences the Earth's expansion and allows for it to happen. The bulk of the plateau was formed in a submarine environment, probably more than 1 kilometer below sea level. I mean, that's just something that points to something to account for. I mean, certainly there's water flowing in the global flood, but this maybe points to that this was happening out in a spreading region when the continents had actually separated, and it wasn't like below the continents, like mid-Pacific mountains. Although I think mid-Pacific mountains also have water, so there's a good chance there's just water involved, but I'm not sure how to specifically explain this, I guess. The plateau has subsided by only 1 to 2 kilometers since its formation because it's not that old, really. But also, I mean, this is accounting for the interpretation that it's that old, so the timing of things is still not really relevant because it's kind of accounted for, even though it's just through a different lens. A false lens of like 90 million is not 90 million because it was the global flood that this was happening in. But it still kind of accounts for that type of stuff in the dating, so it's not just that. Possibly not even that at all in reality. Like it would just, the modern models would still generally capture that, but it's not an undercurrent or like a mantle plume coming up from under. It's coming from the side, basically. So possibly that it's coming from the side rather than from below, where then it like relieves pressure. I don't know if that would explain why it hasn't subsided as much, because it's a current from the primary mantle puncture hole and the secondary mantle puncture hole, or maybe just the secondary mantle puncture hole. I think this one is the primary mantle puncture hole, flowing westward under Europe, then under North America, then east of North America, opening up the Atlantic, up in the northern Atlantic, and then reaching under Mexico to Australia, where then it accumulates material, possibly partly out of like what would have been the Gulf, I'm not sure, before the Gulf of Mexico formed. Possibly some relationship, but there was minor magmatism at about 90 million, which relates to it having spread, but also, so imagine like it's forming because it's at some critical boundary, but then the boundary spreads by this process. So it's over here. It's all the way over here. And really the focal point is over here now. And then there's a current going this way, and it's pushing that way. And against the Hikurangi, or Manihiki Plateau over here. Then it would make sense that there was a minor, like, as this thing pushed out and met resistance, it accumulated more material, but in a minor way at 90 million. That then fits that. The plateau is underlain by unusually low seismic velocities. I don't know what to make of that, like, at a glance. I'd have to look into it more. Besides just like reiterating the same, this is a focal point of energy that's accumulating material that's doing so enough to create what we call hotspots, and then enough to accumulate this material. So maybe it would also influence below to create some low seismic velocity readings, but in like higher density, I guess. Higher density in that area, I'm not sure. Like compaction, pushing down and compacting, but I don't know. Like more so than just the mass itself, because there's a current flow applying a pressure too. Most of the erupted lava is isotopically very uniform over a vast area, which points to it being from a single source, which is why I said it's probably the Atlantic one, because I think the Caribbean large igneous province is related to the secondary mantle puncture hole. So like some current came under this way and went over here and created the Ontong Java Plateau, and then this one, unrelated to this current because it's a secondary puncture hole, some of its current went this way and created the Caribbean large igneous province. So they're not actually geochemically, they are geochemically distinct from one another. So that's why I would say that it's very uniform is because it's really one source flow. The Ontong Java Plateau may have been formed by some kind of plume, but if so, it must have been very different from what we envisage a mantle plume to be. Not just some core bubble of heat that propagates upward and reaches the crust and goes through it, because there's also evidence that's not what's happening. Like the crustal uplift is not there. Like it should push up the crust and then go through it and leave behind evidence that it pushed up the crust, but that's not there either. But if it's like a region below the crust, that current flows atop this lower layer, but below the crust through this channel, and then other current like holds it in place so it accumulates a mound, and so much so that it creates like downward flows that influence the mantle to make hotspots. Then it's a completely different kind of mantle plume. Like, it's kind of a mantle plume, but it's really completely different. Very different. Okay, okay. So many nuances. So back to Hess Rise and Shatsky Rise. I just was like, you know, is this bend? The bend in the Emperor Seamount chain. It's got this straight path. I've been watching all this stuff. I've been all over the place. Hopping all over the place. And I was thinking, is this bend? So if you don't know, it is my interpretation that Hawaii also formed in this process over here. Really, it ended up being here and here, and it moved northward with these currents as a physical sphere, like a miniature baby planet, that ended up coming all the way up here, where then it rolled back down and broke apart in pieces, leaving behind portions of it decaying. And then it went over this way for some reason, which we'll get into from what we're about to look at. Went over this way and then broke down so that its inner surface was exposed as the surface of the Hawaiian Islands proper, where the rest of it was the outer shell, until it got to the inner shell, where the inner shell broke apart like so. Like, notice over here, this corner that I put 5 is there. Like, the faded out background is where it actually is. This is where it actually, like, this is where this actually is relative to the faded out background. This one, the center stretch. This one is not. It's actually over here. But notice 5 is where Kohala is. Kohala. The point of Kohala. Point of Kohala is where 5 is. So it's even now 5 is still connected over here. Whereas this one is over here, kind of separated more so. So like the north, let's say northern, or this segment came off over here at some point as the sphere was breaking apart. This segment came off and laid down here as this like conjoined segment, and then the central segment spread out like a belt. Like, it had a top, a belt around it, and then a bottom that were energetically coupled to one another, more so than to other parts of the sphere. And the top portion came off over here, the belt portion came off across here, and the bottom came off over here at the end. And the magma is still contained in the big island, the bottom, where I guess, like, its source was where it contained it, so that as it flowed through the rest, it was kind of like as they disconnected, like this disconnected over here, and then the source of current flowing through it turned off. Like, there's almost like a heart to the sphere where the currents are coming from, that was really in this segment, and so it no longer is active, this region. And then this region comes off, and then it's no longer active because it disconnected. And then this region comes off at the end and sets in place, so that it used to be connected, though, 8 to 8, 7 to 7, 15 to 15. It was a sphere that physically, that was the inner crust of. The outer crust, as it rolled, was deposited, and then it rolled over this way until it just broke down into its components, displaying all of the nuances of a particle in like in its parts that it does. So that's going on, is this is rolling through, and then it's bending for some reason. in my mind. It's rolling through. So notice if we look up here, there's this arc that goes over here and then goes down here in like a wave-like shape. It's doing a wave, as this is. Like a physical up-down wave. And then right here, though, this is kind of visible. Like it's visible in terms of the color. It has a sea mount. It has sea mounts, ocean plateaus here, a ridge here. Like we can see this ridge, but then here there's no ridge. There's no ridge, and then the ridge begins again. Almost like a sphere rolled past it and like smoothed it out, flattened it, so that there is no ridge around it in this stretch. And then it kept going. Maybe doing the same here at a like different wavelength here. Some other wavelength that's goes more there. But doing the same right there and there, maybe. But then it bends and I'm just like, okay, what is up? What is up with this? So I drew the arc to the bottom of the bend and then down this way, which this arc goes up and back down, and where does it go? To that empty node in Hesrise. But if we just, instead of continuing in the wave-like shape, which it doesn't even do, if we just continue this way, it goes straight in line with the end of the Mid-Pacific Mountains. The end of the Mid-Pacific Mountains, if we go over here, are in line with this seamount chain, like right through there, which is really in line with this. So really, this current went up this way and went through this way. Probably once there wasn't something in the way, I imagine, but still doing it at some point. Which is probably why these are subtle, because there was something in the way blocking this current, making it like deflect out around and make Hesrise. And then over here, that's why it was interesting that this was near the Sierra Nevada batholith potentially. So maybe this was happening, like abutting the Sierra Nevada batholith, or actually no, initially abutting here, I guess, potentially. Unclear. But then this, if I just draw a line across here, is pretty much at the bend. I mean, maybe I'm cheating. Let's see. Like the low point, but I don't want to say there. Let's just say like there. I don't know if I'm at the right angle. To over there. We're not really drawing a distance as much as looking at the base of Shatsky Rise, and the base of Hesrise is where the Emperor Seamount chain bends and becomes the Hawaiian Seamount chain. Is that a coincidence? I would say not. So then I started looking at this. So here's a mantle puncture hole, current coming this way. And if we kind of like fan it out, some of it goes up here, obviously, in these like more clear blue paths channels, where it seems to have vibrated down, up, and down, and like ran into resistance in this area to then start to vibrate down and collide, possibly at Bighorn. But if we really like go back to this, if we follow this path, this purple path westward, follow this portion of the Hawaiian seamount chain because it bends. It doesn't just bend once, it bends twice. It bends here to this way, but then it bends again here at this corner. So if we follow that last portion where the islands are and kind of assume this swirled like it rolled at the end to a little offside here, maybe blocked the current even in some way, but and just follow like the majority of them. There seems to be something right here cutting across there, like across there, that's generally going to there, back to here, across here to here. And if we follow this back in this region, just kind of extend it from over here over and just kind of skip this region because I don't see it here specifically, and just kind of envision that it was there at least. Maybe it got overprinted by subsequent things going on here, and when it cross here, then it really connects back to generally over here. So it's almost like a baseline to this current. Like this is flowing out and has a backstop below it of all of this and pressure up this way, flowing up this way, holding this like surface, and then the current flows off the surface generally, but it keeps going along its trajectory out here to still hold a surface. So when the sphere comes rolling through, this is what I'm thinking, it comes rolling through and then it passes where the current wobbles. It gets like anything past here down this way going across is gonna be more intense because this current wobbles and creates like an actual resistance. So current going across bends around it. So over here it's pretty protected. And then this kind of like ramps up too. Like if we just keep going up this way, it kind of goes up here. Like maybe if I go like this. Almost like holding a boundary as it rolls down in some balance point through here. Through this region it manages to go pretty straight. So it's not like bending off of this path, at least. And it looks like it might have, like over in this stretch, maybe there's a bend, honestly. Like right there. Let's do it again. Like that thing to there. And then up like this way. Maybe to like there. So that it's like straightening out a little bit here. But as soon as it, so this bend seems to start here. Let's go ahead and just go like this. Let's say a line, like a straight line going here. How close to there is it? If I go there. It's not quite there, but it's relatively in line with this one. And Shatsky Raz, or Tamu Massif, and then the other Ori Massif, maybe, I forget the math. Shirshov Massif. It's generally in that line. Kind of like a resistance point, so the current flows like between those, and again, like the hand thing that was happening over here, like provides a backstop, almost like Tamu Massif backstop, followed by the Shirshov backstop, and then continue straight, as well as going up, but doing it over here in the going straight to that point, as well as going up in this region, so it's like pushing the sphere to bend its path, make it go a little more this way, although it perhaps was started out this way, so it almost looks like there's another current over here that's like relatively colliding and creating some kind of channel balance point. Mind you, this down here points at Mid-Pacific Mountains, so if we keep going, the nose of Mid-Pacific Mountains points at the Emperor Seamount, especially Seamount Chain, especially if we kind of put in more bends. It points more towards these final ones than, because it doesn't really go through the center of that one, which would make this move a little further to the left. But so it bends at this point, where the current below it is more able to freely flow through, I guess, and influence this sphere rolling back down. But in this range, it's just like breaking the outer shell, crossing through the current going this way. And I believe, I mean, it's possible that it was actually physically rolling below the crust in this region and collided with the Sierra Nevada, at which point it passed here. Let me see. And this, like how this goes down, collide, like at the very end, passes this, where then it's caused a bend, but it starts to spread out now. Like it maybe rolls through here. Maybe even goes through and goes over along what would end up being the San Andreas Fault. That would be crazy. I don't think it formed that early though. Actually, like as it's spreading away, is it possible that it starts over here, comes out over here in this region, goes up there, but as it's doing that, it's like shifting so that ultimately this is there, where it like comes out there and keeps forming ultimately as it's doing it, to the point where or out there maybe, where it's like here in the rolling. And then by the time it's here, it's down here, but it's spreading out. The Pacific is opening. And it keeps rolling. Keeps rolling. Until it hits that maximum deflection point of that pressure of the bottom current that's flowing this way, with all these other currents that are being caused to bend generally, like up this way. Some are even going up this way. But because of that, they're bending, so they're applying a pressure downward, so it kind of squeezes a main current that's just stronger along the boundary, which ends up just being like a wall over here. It even looks like the current interacted with Hawaii and like fanned out past it. Which then bends it again though, at this point. Why would that be related? I feel like I had some thoughts on that. Like a path this way. Oh yeah, generally because in this region up to here, this current is applying the pressure, kind of like over here. This current is applying a pressure, so the current from the mantle puncture hole goes down and then up, and it goes around the pressure and bends, but then continues on with its general path. So it was over here where this current was applying a pressure to the general motion of Hawaii downward, so it was kept moving downward a little bit more than after it passes the influence of the current, and then it stabilizes as well with the bracing current rather than, I guess, going past it and like wobbling. So I just drew this. Here's the mantle puncture hole, current going this way, and then kind of dividing. I just drew it kind of dividing. So then it goes in a wobble state up here, and then a straight line over here to Hawaii. Like, that was kind of what I was trying to capture in this one. Then I took an angle. I was like, okay, this is 90 degrees plus 1 from the... Maybe a little more if I were to be more precise, honestly. Maybe like 95, but it's pretty close to 90 degrees. This angle and then this angle. Well, those lines relative to one another. There's Papinin Ridge up there, and with the gap between here, this is pretty connected. This does look like another current went this way. Even out this way a bit. And again, just like the current going up this way that continued up to the bend point over there, this also behaves as like a bend point for current going up this way that goes down, that goes over across here, creating this other wavelength. Let's see what this is. How many posts is this? Okay, I'll just look at this real quick. I think I already talked about this, so we're good on this. We're good on this. Okay, so this is Neil Turok talking about secrets of the universe.
That this uncertainty principle could never be violated. And it's very, very drastic. It leads to all sorts of changes in the laws of physics with respect to classical physics.
Oops, this is where I was. Let me go back a little bit. As you watch this, keep in mind what we were just talking about. I don't know what to make of it yet. It just occurred to me, and then I started recording. Like, I literally stopped watching this and started recording. The first recording just before this one. So I thought
Possible to do with a stick if you just use the point. Okay, so you poke the point in, all you'll get is a spreading wave. It won't go in a single direction, it'll spread out in all directions. And the only way to get it to go in one direction is to use the stick sideways. Okay, so where the stick is extended like this and you poke it into the water, the wave will go forward in that direction, but of course it'll spread out at the ends. That's called diffraction. That was well known as a wave phenomenon. If I send a wave in to see some object, the structure here is supposed to be the microscope. So I send a wave in, it's an object of size delta x, but what's going to happen is the waves will spread. And they spread by this amount. The angle of spreading is just the wavelength over delta x. And so intuitively, it's sort of obvious. You can't see an object smaller than the wavelength of the light. But what actually happens is the light comes in, it jiggles the object then re-emits or scatters.
It jiggles the object. The object then re-emits. Maybe even that. Maybe. It is like right where the object and the wave actually meet is right there, and then there's that. I still don't know what to make of this. This thing is kind of interesting. This diamond, it's gotta be some diamond of information then, right? It only makes sense. It only makes sense. Then another wave, I guess this wave also hits it here. There's maybe some seamounts there. From it. I was wondering if there'd be any, like, it's possible that the material that's missing here is actually somewhere along this path and vice versa. Like where this crosses, maybe some of this is like geochemically identifiable as Hawaiian in a way where like a mantle plume that's moving, like not moving, but a stationary mantle plume that the Pacific is moving, and then the Pacific changes angles, so this changes angles. That would be incapable of like influencing the seamounts over there, seemingly, or whatever exactly. Like, it seems possible that there's evidence out there that maybe isn't actually accumulated because it's really hard to, I don't know if there's anything on this. I don't know if anyone has even like given a name to this. Okay, let's keep going though. So, but like wave. Sound a wave interacts with a particle.
Does the light.
Like this wave into Hawaii. Particle, a sphere. I'm like, dude, the fundamental physics here, dude. That's what I'm looking at. That's why I'm playing this. Is like, what physics are on display here? I don't really agree with quantum mechanics. the framework he's presenting in. But there's probably some like truth to it also. Not quantum mechanics, but the like general things being talked about. Like there's certainly like some things are true about this. Whether or not I agree with the totality and that it's in a quantum mechanic framework, I think makes it not so exact, but still it's happening on the surface of the Earth, possibly. So that's why I was like, whoa, dude. Does it even diffract? Like it comes in this way and then goes out this way at like a maximum, kind of like this. At a theta. That is proportional to the wavelength. Wavelength. Like this is a wavelength of something like 1,200, 1,300 miles wavelength. Delta X. I'm not sure. Let's just hit play. Go back a little and hit play now. Okay. Now that I put it a little more into why I'm watching this and why I'm even gonna hit play, because it seems pretty important.
And so intuitively, it's sort of obvious. You can't see an object smaller than the wavelength of the light. But what actually happens is the light comes in, it jiggles the object then re-emits or scatters the light, and it does so in this way that spreads. So this was all very well understood before quantum mechanics. But I think it's a nice physical illustration of the uncertainty principle. This is some.
Phew, it's not in a framework of quantum mechanics. Oh, thank God. I definitely gotta look into this more. It's
something you cannot possibly violate, and you cannot possibly make a planar wave by sticking a point into a pond. However, I just told you that the light actually is made out of particles. It's made out of these quanta, or photons. And the problem is that particles kick. So this light wave is coming in, and it's actually a packet of energy. And now you're telling me that that packet is going to spread according to the wave. And so the packet could be deflected through this angle theta. And when it's deflected, that gives a kick. Okay, so the light was actually, this particle came in, hit the object you're trying to see, and got spread out. We don't know where the particle is. It could be anywhere in that spread. That's random. That's what quantum mechanics says, that the
That's what quantum mechanics says, but it looks like it's not random. Like it's kind of at the maximum overall width of this current flow, at the boundary of it. Even though it's coming in at not the boundary of it, the particle ends up going to the boundary of it. I don't know if that's would be a universal process to it, but at least it looks pretty not random, I guess. If this is relatable, which, I mean, what are the odds that I'm watching this video and he starts talking about this as I'm looking at this and have this. I just made this today, like hours ago, and then I'm like, I watch this physics video. I like Neil Turok. I've watched several of his talks. Really find him worth listening to, and let me just hit play and see what happens. And then he's talking about this. He also said, red tilted cosmology, where longer wavelengths are slightly stronger than shorter wavelengths by 4% per 7 times. Every time the wavelength is multiplied by 7, it is a 4% greater amplitude of waves at longer wavelengths, so they're stronger. Red tilted cosmology, and I was just like, this slight imbalance. I mean, it makes me think of yin and yang, where there's two forces that are in balance with one another, but one is slightly like off. They're slightly off center, probably because they're not quite balanced, so that they then start to spin across large enough scales, basically inducing the fractal structure that we see everywhere. And that kind of gave me that vibe, that 4% red tilt, you called it. I was like, whoa, that seems quite applicable to that kind of thing. Then I was thinking about how that would mean there's like another side doing the opposite in the opposite direction, like antimatter and time going the other way kind of thing, in like a circle rather than straight, and really in like that figure, like the infinite structure that ammonites repeat on.
Precise angle it goes is random, but because it can be deflected by any angle, it kicks the particle. And basically what that means, you can go through the algebra, it means that the uncertainty in the position of the particle you're measuring multiplied by the uncertainty in its momentum is equal to Planck's, or approximately equal to Planck's constant. And so that's Heisenberg's uncertainty relation. It's a direct consequence of the fact that light comes in packets and that light is a wave and spreads. So this was...
Okay, I don't want to keep playing that. I don't actually know what else he says, but the direct consequence that particles flow as a wave across different scales. Like these are like grains of basalt, say, or basically atoms. These are atoms flowing, and then they interact with larger particles like relatively atoms compared to a sphere of Hawaii, that then interacts in a way that it behaves like a fractal of that behavior on the surface of the Earth. So I was thinking maybe there's some Planck's constant relationship in this that's visible somehow. I don't know how I would possibly like get that out of this without really doing some research and looking into things, but it was a thought. It was a thought I had. Let's see. Oh yeah, maybe real quick I'll go through this stuff. So this is from 2 videos ago. This is from 2 videos ago. All these tabs are from afterwards. So I tried to envision if there's a mantle puncture hole, say, here. At this red point, and current flows in one direction and in the other, and it flows with a larger volume in the direction opposite to the rotation of the Earth. Sorry, flat earthers. I envision that the currents come back opposite side and meet, and then I was trying to like imagine a sequence of events where they collide like this, but then they like want the stronger current start, which is why V1 greater than V2 matters and the rotation matters. The stronger current overwhelms slightly the very slightly lesser current in terms of its energy, even though the stronger current fans out more and becomes like a large structure, while the lesser current compensates for by its having just a more pokey, like almost the same current but more focused in essence. And that one though collides, so we got this other side where it's colliding and it basically bending it. So they're still like connected, like they're still focused into one another, but it starts to bend the easier bent current, which is the focused one. So rather than the dense mass, which is like not really as malleable, let's say, due to a higher volume of material, so it's just harder to change its shape. So it runs into it, bends it, and it creates like a lift off kind of thing. That's what I was thinking. So it has some current going above this like bend, and some of it actually rejoins the other current. Like instead of running into it, it actually causes the other current to bend down a bit, down like this. So it bends down the larger volume current so that it goes more in a straight line. But it then creates like a cycle like this. So I'm basically trying to envision how a puncture hole here can produce the map that we see in the magnetic anomaly map by starting off with the Western Pacific, really. Like, current flows in this way. Generally this way, which runs into this current opposite it head on, but then they start to bend, it bends. So this current flowing this way starts to bend upward over top the bend. That's what I'm getting at, that kind of thing. So it goes over top this bend, and then it cycles. So this is actually, I've said this current goes this way and this way, but it kind of wraps around here and doesn't really have like a divide. So I think I might be mistaken, and in reality it ends up going this way, like this, more in a spiral that then is pinched from both sides and has like a little diamond of current flowing with each one, so that it goes with this current and with this current, or vice versa. But I think it definitely goes this way, right? It's gotta go that way. It's definitely going this way. And it's definitely going this way too. So maybe it starts to like do layers of it, even like this. Even making like dense ones going one way and subtle ones going the other. Where this one's, the current going this way is more, it's hotter. It hasn't heat exchanged with the ocean atop North America that was there. Where this current coming out over there is more heat exchanged. It's been out under the crust for longer, so it starts to maybe create more magnetic stripes of its nature rather than the other subtler blue nature. And just kind of layering, I guess, going both directions in both ways, doing maybe both simultaneously like that. But then creating a ramp, which then creates another ramp, I guess. I don't know if there's such a ramp over here, but like here, ramping up this way though, through here, to go up over here, where then it runs into this current going across this way and bends around it, but only so much as to go over into here. Comes in here towards the mantle puncture hole, goes around, bends in here, goes around the mantle puncture hole, goes this way and across and down past this current, goes across it under the continent, and then comes out in the Mariana Trench region, where it then goes between the current and really flows into it like this. So it goes around like that, around, divides here at the Kursk magnetic anomaly, which goes around here, Kursk magnetic anomaly, where the other current goes in opposite to the primary rotation direction, I guess, and spins in here, creating like a nucleus of this region that's going in the opposite direction more. So it's almost like it's creating a boundary between them, and a lot of turbulence ends up happening here, I guess. And then we've got a north terminal, we've got this current going across, which ends up going to the Yellowstone hotspot, as well as the north terminal, I believe. Like, so it goes around here, goes over into there, then goes over into here. This is the above the mantle puncture hole, goes in there, then it goes in this way, fills in here. Then it goes around down this way, where it goes down to the Yellowstone hotspot, which is here. So it's pointing a current down this way, which runs into this current going across from the mantle puncture hole above the backbone of this spine, or this, above this structure out in the Western Pacific, above it, pointed to it. So it goes across this way, over here to the Yellowstone hotspot. So they're pointing to the same location. And then the Galapagos hotspot, I believe I was thinking it also forms like generally in this path, like down this way past Yellowstone, down generally over here, like a straight line path from the north terminal down this way to the Galapagos hotspot, where there's some kind of connection there too, which is really like the boundary of this current flowing through this region, where then the hotspot is. And then the north terminal breaks off again between Greenland and Canada. It goes underneath Greenland, and it runs into this current going up the Kursk magnetic anomaly, going up this way, but then into it, like going around here, runs into this current going up this way, and runs in from over here though, this way. They run into each other, and then Iceland. That's as far as I got on this. I'm pretty sure this could be done for the whole Earth to a point where it's like, oh, which really only happens on a sphere, honestly. I don't want to say it proves the Earth is a sphere, because the flat earthers are like, prove it, prove it. Like, well, the data, I mean, sure, I haven't seen it, maybe it's not, like, here's flat earth that kind of fits better on a flat plane, but it's still not scaled appropriately, so maybe, like, it's not, like, as flat earth is presented either. So here's me trying to draw it on the map. I also was thinking then maybe I was mistaken. So this kind of sparks some other thoughts, like Turkey. Maybe I was mistaken on this current. I thought it was coming through this way from the mantle puncture hole, going south through the southern tip of Africa into Antarctica over here, and down through this way and up into eastern Australia, where then it flowed into the angel structure. But I thought maybe like it would make more sense if this is bowing out this way and this is bowing out this way from a current going generally across this way, out of the mantle puncture hole, flowing west, flowing east, meeting each other and creating this structure. Then it would make more sense that this would kind of break off in like a secondary point, like pressure up here, some terminal here, and then a secondary current going down this way, through this way, across, to go up this way, to go up through instead in the opposite direction, back towards the mantle puncture hole, where so did this one. Like from below, so like top and bottom, but before the earth expanded, so this was below, like this general direction, I guess. In the same way as this is to the west, and like truly to the west, this is truly to the east at the time. This was from the north, this was from the south. So I think it kind of makes sense that way, where this current goes, maybe even instead of just going up to there, it also goes generally across here. To like, actually, Australia would have been over here initially. So it gets moved off of this in the process. This comes over and interacts with it, and something is holding the pressure in the region of Australia. Maybe because it was forming there, actually. This ammonite structure was forming there, maybe. I mean, that's kind of what I've been interpreting, is it was generally forming there initially, and then it moved off. Possibly as these currents bowed out. Oh no, he did the symbol. Oh yeah, he's Illuminati. But so I'm thinking maybe it did that and then spiraled here still in some way where this current ended up going past it and went the other way. It's possible. Then I tried to do some stuff there that didn't really... Let me just go like this. I thought this was a good angle. Just period. A good angle to look at North America because it's got this really flat face here, and then a bend down, and then kind of a change, and then a connection over to another continent. And then over here, it's got this flat face. A little different to like California here, Baja California here, like the anti-structure where it's a Gulf and it's a state, it's continental land and a Gulf. But then the bend around here, or bend, and then like a little thing going on there, and then a connection over, and then the other continent. And then I was trying to, that's what I was trying to do, is put the the mantle puncture hole location, the secondary mantle puncture hole, and its jet stream through. Its main jet stream is this one, which should be going through Baja. But it was kind of tricky to scale it, and I realized that I'd have to actually scale it right, and kind of just stopped. But I was looking at this, like, notice this bend here, this bend here, this bend here, but they're spaced, right? Like, could that have happened in here? Like a current going through at this part, this place, and here maybe? That then bends, and like creates this space for all these other currents to be participating, and then another current that goes like parallel to those that then bends here, maybe even another one there, that are related to like as this current flowed under North America before the ocean plate moved away out from under North America. Currents were being flowed through here, possibly through like a lot of it. Maybe through like here, as well as along the island arcs, or the islands of Philippines, Sulawesi, North Maluku, and Papua New Guinea. Like going out around those. Around these generally, one arc, and then another arc going that way, and another one going that way. Which then, as it started to spread, they like re-established a relationship with where they were somehow, so that now they're over like that. Now we see them going off that way, even though they initially started going this way. But then by the time they moved out, their connection point was just, it's all we see. Back to where they once were. I think there's something like that to it. It's hard to put them together like that, though. But even just this image alone is pretty sweet. I don't know what I was doing here. I think I was trying to do it more in like the normal angle of looking at it. I thought maybe that would make it easier in terms of the size. This would be like there. I think I was trying to get the mid-Pacific mountains aligned. It looks like it bends too much, but that might just be like it moving away from under North America, and the bend just started here, but then it moved away. I was gonna make a map of all the hotspots on the magnetic anomaly map, but I didn't. That's all I did for that one. And then there's that, and then whatever this was. And I think we're through them all. We made it through everything I have accumulated that's not written down on just some research I was doing. Just same old, you know. This is something. The change in the this bend right here is simultaneous co-eval to the accretion of Silesia onto the northern Cascades region here. Which is when the Kula plate dies. something to it. So if you imagine this current's coming across from there, across here, it starts to wobble. But it's way closer to over here. Like this stuff, you know, it seems to me that this current flowing across was running into this region where it was running into the current from up here. And that was producing like a hotspot, which was producing a oceanic plateau, which then accreted onto North America as Silesia. That's part of me. But then their balance point, maybe their balance point, like, imagine the current goes in here, goes swirls around, goes in there, does its thing, fills pressure though, it's filling pressure. Then it starts coming around this way, over here, like around this region, more so between Russia and Alaska, like in this region. But this region was still closer. It just was still further than the boundary. Then the collision of this stream across with that stream would move as it basically restabilized from going this way to a new equilibrium over here where it actually flowed this way like more readily. At which point it's flowing down into Yellowstone area and just moving, like the balance point between them is moving, and then it positions where it is, which is effectively happening because the Earth is expanding and new angles are happening. So effectively, the continent moves atop the hotspot, even though the balance point is moving. It's also just like staying generally in a way where it's relatively stable. Like it's not flying all over the place, although it seems hotspots move. Like no doubt about it, I'd say. I think people are trying to hinge to the concept that it's just this deep mantle plume that comes up and punctures through over and over as the plates move. A little too much because otherwise it's hard to explain, and it's easier to explain by just some simple thing like that that's not actually true. But then they balance out of Yellowstone, like along this backbone again. As well as something in the process making that Emperor trough for sure. So maybe... I wonder if there's any Hawaiian link to Silesia. It moves past. I guess it's possible as it moves past, it actually changes where this current is flowing. Because this is kind of subtle here. Almost like it wasn't doing it that long enough to really etch through it and re-establish its shape, but enough to like create some divide there, some changes to it, and really have like the pivot point of this sharp corner where it bends to have like the most flow. But maybe the sphere rolling participated in moving the angle so that the current itself that was flowing more across this way as the sphere moved through, although it was already wobbly beforehand. Because this is Shatsky, these formed first. This was already there before the Emperor Seamount chain really started to form. So it would have to, the current would have to already be vibrating like that, probably because it's running into resistance over there in North America though. And then this starts to flow through. Maybe participates in dislodging things that are like, maybe Hess Rise was still under North America. And then this ball rolls through and kind of shoves down temporarily on the region and maybe is even possibly below the crust. I don't think so, but possibly. And I mean, it seems like it could have been like physically hitting over here, like rolling through this area. I don't know why there wouldn't be more clear evidence like I have in that one post, wherever it is, this one. Maybe it was within this region, and then when it hit this, it physically made space below by pressing under the like physically rolling underneath the Sierra Nevada batholith deep down in the magnetic anomaly map, that we cannot even see it there, like rolling under this, like coming down through here and like out through there, out through here or something, where at that point it physically spaced the plates enough to like move another rung and dislodge them, but it did it enough where they actually disconnected and new ocean floor formed at that point. Where over here it was kind of disconnecting, where like Shatsky Rise started over here, let's say, in this area, and then it swung out more while Hess Rise relodged. Hess Rise moved from here down to like here, but Shatsky Rise moved from here like outward, maybe through there too, kind of thing, but generally below, so that it could still, like, it's not like actually at the same level, it's moving below, but they still interact with one another, where it's beneficial to go through like a relatively weak void area. So the sphere maybe helped dislodge Hess Rise so that it could then swing out, which then led to an increase in current flows at that point into over here, because it was more direct at that point. This flow was more directly into this region, where before it was flowing, I guess, over. I don't know why it would not be. Why it would suddenly happen then. Okay, before I go reading all these notes, I'll just stop this video here. I gotta go to bed, holy crap. I'm gonna smoke though, because that's what I do. I'm an idiot. Alright, see you guys in the next one later.